Now, if I start reading this poem and I hear this man's voice rising above the sound of my poem, I'm going to go over to him and kick his living ass right out of this thing. Physically. I'm going to kick his ass right out of this goddamn hall. Are they doing a commercial thing, serving drinks, while I'm up here burying my artistic soul? How degrading.
He said, you know, you give them the laughers and the jokers in the first half.
The smoke comes around. A child about 17 says to you, "Wanna fuck?" Oh, God, you say, I just masturbated twice this afternoon.
And in the second half, you give them the soul stuff, the serious stuff.
He fell down a stairway as a child. And they had to operate on his legs. And when they were done, his legs were about half the length they were meant to be. And that's the way he grew into manhood, with those very short legs. He hung around Paris cafes and sketched the dancing girls and drank very much. He liked to wear a top hat, and he sketched his things while drinking, doing it like that, cutting through the odds. He had it down tight and clean. He sketched all the dancing girls that would never be his. And one night he got it all down and done, tumbling drunk down a stairway, little legs whirling. He became involved with that other terrible and beautiful whore.
Appearances by Charles Bukowski in Vancouver in 1979 and Redondo Beach in 1980 were the last two poetry readings he ever did, even though he lived and wrote for another 14 years. One Tough Mother includes the never-before-released complete versions of those last two readings, together with featurettes of Bukowski at the Huntington, About Born Into This, and exclusive performances from the play Love Bukowski, and more.
In the course of doing his writing, he really focused on the sort of edges of society. He focused on the outcasts, the prostitutes, the gamblers, the con artists. He also focused on people who simply were trying to get ahead in a world that didn't cut them any slack. He understood living on the edge himself because he did it. He wrote about these people. He was comfortable with them, and he could identify with them. His readers could identify with him in turn, and so he was very popular with people who were struggling to find their way in the world and maybe not succeeding, and wondering what they were going to make of their lives. Also, Bukowski lived and wrote on the edge of the literary world, of the literary establishment. He didn't hew to the forms and the formal structures of literary conventions. He simply repudiated them. He wrote with natural language. He, at one point, said that he wanted to keep his writing raw, simple, and easy, and that certainly is what he did, so he could be understood by anyone.
How could you write a novel in 3 or 4 weeks? And he said, fear.
And I was reading the LA Free Press, and I just thought, this is remarkable. This guy's the writer of the century.
He arrives in San Francisco for this reading, and my God, it was like the second coming. We didn't have to share the podium. This is a Bukowski event.
Do I know you? One more beer, I'll take you all. Forgive me. You have my soul and I have your money.
I picked up a Bukowski book and I just started reading it, and it was the last night of the Earth poems was the
first book of his that I read, and it just there was something about it that just it blew my mind. It was really powerful. He was talking about things that I really was experiencing firsthand. He wrote about, you know, the trials and tribulations of the post office, and here I was working in my cubicle in an ad agency and not liking my job and feeling ripped off by what I was doing. And so post office really spoke to me. There were all these strange coincidences that had happened. And one of the weirder ones is when the film showed at Sundance, we had interviewed John Martin. He was talking about women and all the women, the novel, but then when the novel came out, all these women would send naked pictures of themselves. And he said, here's one, and it's a lady in the bathtub. Well, the film premiered at Sundance, and there was a guy in the audience who wrote a review, and he said, you know, one of the oddest things about the film was that's an old girlfriend of mine in the bathtub. And it turns out that she's a journalist, and she interviewed me when the film came out, you know, and so she had her whole perspective on Bukowski. So there are all sorts of weird things that happen that just you couldn't make up, you know, but you know, as Joseph Campbell says, synchronicity means you're on the beam. What's supposed to be happening is happening. So you're doing the right thing, and the universe is supporting you in that way.
Came to the door one night, wet, thin, beaten, and terrorized. A white, cross-eyed, tailless cat. I took him in and fed him, and he stayed. He grew to trust me. Until a friend pulled up the driveway and ran him over. I put him on the bathroom floor. Gave him water and pills. He wouldn't eat. He wouldn't touch the water. I dipped my finger into it, and I wet his mouth, and I talked to him. I didn't go anywhere. I put in a lot of bathroom time and talked to him, and gently touched him, and he looked back at me with those pale blue crossed eyes. Well, you know the rest. Now he is better than ever. Cross-eyed, almost toothless, but the grace is back. And that look in his eyes never left. And now, sometimes, I'm interviewed. They want to hear about life and literature, and I get drunk. And hold up! My cross-eyed, shot, run-over, detailed cat and say, look at this. But they don't understand. They say something like, you say you've been influenced by Celine. No! I hold the cat up. By what happens? By things like this. By this. By this. I shake the cat. I hold him up in the smoky and drunken lights. When he's relaxed, he knows. It's then that the interviews end. Although, I am proud sometimes when I see the pictures later, and there I am, and there is the cat, and we are photographed together. He too knows it's bullshit. But that somehow it all helps.